Welcome to Seniority Authority, the podcast where I track down experts to answer your questions on aging. I'm your host, Cathleen Toomey. Let's get smarter about growing older. Let's talk about aging and your future. We discuss many aspects of aging on this show, but what about when aging becomes challenging and you need help? Do you have a plan in place, everyone who's listening, for what to do when that happens? Would it surprise you to learn that an estimated 48 million Americans provide unpaid care to an older adult in their family? 48 million. At 17% of the population, this number is rising as the older adult population rising. The unpaid family caregivers are typically balancing their own home, family, and work, and it can be a financial, physical, and emotional strain to add caregiving to that mix. And often they didn't anticipate this. Yet, as more people in this country choose to stay at home, and as the cost and availability of caregivers becomes out of reach for many, family caregivers fill in the gaps. Welcome to Seniority Authority. I'm Cathleen Toomey. So, what do we do about this situation with so many unpaid family caregivers? One organization has figured out a plan. The Ben Rose Institute for Aging is a 110-year-old research-based institution in Ohio. They have pioneered a successful evidence-based program that provides individualized support for family caregivers through a program called We Care Because You Do. Here today to discuss the program is Lauri Scharf, lead care consultant and master trainer with We Care, who has a long history as a social worker in many different arenas connected to older adults. Thanks to our show sponsor, the Riverwoods Group, Northern New England's largest family of not-for-profit continuing care retirement communities, where independent, active adults find purpose, community, and peace of mind. Visit us at riverwoodsgroup.org. Now, let's hear from today's guest. Lauri, I am thrilled to have you on Seniority Authority today.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's great to be here.
Yes, this interview, for those of you listening, has been a long time coming. We have talked to the Benjamin Rose Institute for Aging for many months. I myself participated in the program that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm just excited that Lauri has the time to delve into this for us today. As we start, Lauri, can you explain how the need for this program was first identified?
So there's always a need for caregiver support. And let me talk about the word caregiver first, because many times we think of a caregiver as a professional, as someone who's paid, and the family member or significant other or concerned individual doesn't necessarily think of themselves as a caregiver. So by not giving themselves that name, so to speak, they tend to shy away from looking for resources, getting help, getting support that would not only benefit the person that they're supporting themselves, but also that's helping them.
And I think this is important. Through this particular interview, we are talking about, when we say caregivers, we're talking about unpaid family caregivers, not professionals.
And when someone they kind of gently slide into the role, because when you think of relationships, one person does this, one person does that, you kind of have your roles, some of them intersect, and somebody gets sick or they're not able to do that, the other person picks up the slack, and then you might go back to normal, or you might keep those new tasks that are there. And that's a normal give and take relationship. But as we're dealing with illnesses, with cognitive decline, many times the scales tend to tip a little bit more with one person taking on the bulk of the responsibility and the work and being the brains for two people. And before you know it, you wake up and you're doing all of these things, and there's someone that's just looking at you, dependent on you, and maybe even resenting you.
That's very important to identify, Lori, that it's not like taking on a job. Okay, I have a new job. I'm going to take this role. It's insidious. It kind of starts here
Mhm.
and it grows. Or it could be all of a sudden at once there's an episode and you are
Yes,
plunged into caregiving when I would, it's not probably an exaggeration to say, most of the people who are unpaid family caregivers don't know what they're doing. Like, this is not their field, correct?
correct, correct. And so I kind of liken it to then we become the Google caregiver. And
Yes, I
and
love that. The Google
and
caregiver.
And so we're Googling a term, and if you would Google the word dementia, there are just thousands and thousands of entries. But as a Google caregiver, you don't have time to find out which is the most valuable, the most academically accurate. We look at the maybe the first page, maybe half of the second page, trying to draw out information. And those are the sites that are most frequented, but that doesn't mean it's the most accurate information. In addition to becoming a Google caregiver, we become my brother's cousin's uncle had this illness, and this is what they did. When I worked at the Alzheimer's Association, we said if you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one person with dementia.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own path, and everyone should that singular path should be honored because it reflects the values and beliefs of the individual and their family.
But you're this adult, likely in a sandwich generation. So you're dealing
Mhm.
with your own work, your kids, your home, everything else, and you are caring for an older adult and you need answers, reliable, trusted answers quickly. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration happens with the unpaid family caregivers is their heart is in the right place. They want to do the right thing, but they don't have time to plow through 10 academic journals to find out what the answer is.
Correct. And in a society where we are multitasking everything that we do, we're not just doing one thing and completing it. Have put on ourselves this idea that not only should we be able to multitask, but we should be also multi proficient in everything that
Yes.
we do. And that is not a feasible end to our quest.
Well, that's why I started the Seniority Authority podcast because I had so many friends of mine who were asking me questions. Then I would go find the expert at Riverwoods that would answer the question and tell them that I thought, why don't I start this podcast and interview experts so that people have a faster way to answer and deal with these various situations, as you say, multiple kinds of issues.
And again, you knew who to go to for the information, but you weren't getting the whole story. And you
Mhm.
were probably getting very accurate information. But I likened our care consultant as to the conductor in an orchestra who knows when to bring in the horns, who knows when to bring in the strings. And so that we're all playing the same sheet of music, but we're accenting those areas that we're an expert at. So having someone to help coordinate with all of these resources and information is very important, which can eliminate some of the time wasted into finding the next person who's the helper or the next person that's going to be the authority.
No, I think that's really a good point. So let's talk about this program called We Care Because You Do. Tell our listeners what this program consists of.
So let me go back to 1997 when Benjamin Rose created a research program, a research process looking at caregivers. And it was determined that caregivers need as much support as the care receiver themselves because caregivers, some of them were passing away even before the care receiver, because of the nature of an illness. If someone is physically fit, but they're having a cognitive decline and their spouse has their own physical issues. Now we have a dilemma here. So at Benjamin Rose, we have a research staff, and the research did studies on caregivers, piloted with several organizations, including Alzheimer's Association and with the VA and over 4,000 families. And from this, the birth of BRI Care Consultation was developed. BRI Care Consultation is an evidence-based program. It is approved by the best practices. It has that seal, but at the end of the day, evidence-based means it works.
Mhm.
And we have over 30 licensed sites that we sell the license to BRI Care Consultation to sites throughout the United States. And Benjamin Rose, for the longest time, was selling this license, but we weren't delivering the program. And finally, the light bulb went on. They said, this is our product. This is our baby. We need to be delivering this to the folks in our area. So Benjamin Rose is delivering the VRI Care Consultation under the name We Care Because You Do.
Great. And is it available in 30 states?
It's 30 different sites. I don't think we're hit 30 states, but
Okay.
we do have Alaska, California, Texas, Wisconsin, Michigan, Virginia. We're all over Georgia.
Great. So, because our audience is national, so we will put a map or a list of the states where you can find this program. So, if you're interested, you can look this up and sign up. And if you are interested, if you're a family caregiver that's like, I think I could do this better, or I am in need of a break, tell me what you would experience if you participated in the We Care program.
So we start out with part of our program, there's a formal piece. I like to say our program is like a house. And we know that a house has to have walls, it needs a roof, it needs some doors and windows. But what that house looks like varies with each person. So I'm going to ask you, as a care consultant, what do you want your house to look like? Do you want two-story? Do you want a ranch? How many bedrooms do you want? Tell me, what's a good day for your loved one? What gets in the way of a good day? What's a good day for you? So, kind of doing this informal assessment that really is just a conversation with myself and the caregiver. But at the same time, I'm analyzing this information because I have 35 different domains that I want to figure out by the time we're done 4 months into our conversation. And so you're not aware that I'm doing this, but I'm kind of formulating, identifying what are maybe some goals, two or three goals that are your immediate concern. I'll kind of refresh your brain. Okay, here's three goals that you talked about today. Let's pick two goals and let's come up with some options because there's more than one way to get where you need to go. And so there's a lot of flexibility in this program because it is person centered. It is looking at what makes sense to you and your family. How is your loved one going to respond? Who are maybe some supports? Can we work to build a support team that's going to help the caregiver lessen the burden on all the activities that they need to do?
So, this is a program that's an individual over the phone connection between the expert at Ben Rose, who is a social worker, and the caregiver. And they have a conversation, and you do an analysis of kind of from your perspective, caregiver, what are you struggling with? And from your perspective, what is the care recipient struggling with? And then you work together to help them come up with an action plan. Is that
Cor Correct,
right?
and this action plan not only addresses the concerns of the care receiver, and not only addresses the concerns of helping the caregiver address the concerns of the care receiver, but the uniqueness of this program is we provide equal support to the caregiver as well. How are you taking care of
Mm.
yourself? When was the last time you went to the doctor? What are you doing for yourself in order to regenerate? And we keep that at the forefront. And then what we do as a result of all of this, having this conversation, I liken it to when you go to you get a resource and you give them a call and you have this pad of paper all ready and your pen already by the phone. And they say, well, leave your name and number, we'll get back to you. And when they get back to you, what happens? That pad of paper has been used for something else. You can't find a pen. So you start writing on the back of an envelope, taking notes real quick and just writing phrases. And you get off the phone going, wow, that was a great phone call. And you look at your notes going, I don't understand what I wrote. So what we do as part of the program is that we do summarize everything and we create action steps, next steps for the caregiver to take, next steps that the care consultant might need to take. If the care receiver is able to participate, maybe some next steps for them to do so that we're all talking the same language, we're all on the same page. And again, another beauty to the program that we have is we provide ongoing support. We don't
Mhm.
just like send you out there. I like to think that we're the customer service that hasn't been there in many, many years, that we're calling up, how are you doing? Were you
Mhm.
able to get that done? Is your loved one having a good day? How are you doing? Sure, we can cross those things off your action plan. Glad you were able to do that. Let's talk about next steps. You weren't able to complete that action step. Well, let's think about maybe let's looking at it a different way. Let's try another option. But we want you to be successful. And yes, we have over 30 sites, but the beauty of this program, again, I'll go back to the analogy of building a house, that I can give you the floor plans of a house and how to build it, but it can be in any location. So the fact that we can deliver We Care because you do to anyone that has a phone within the United States. I've had a caregiver and care receiver in California that wasn't at one of our sites. It's because this program, this evidence-based program, is a philosophy and a structure that is adapted to the families that we're working with.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that it is eminently adaptable because, as you say, no two people have the same dementia experience, no two adults have the same aging experience, and there's very hard to find similar caregiver situations. And I think what I like about this program and where I think it meets a gap is that you follow the caregiver for 3 months. So it's a 3-month program to start off with,
Mhm.
and then you can renew. But it's not a one and done. It's a continued relationship that you build with that caregiver. So they can vent to their friends, but they can vent to you and you can say, okay, let's break down some ways around this issue and you follow up. Now, how often for our listeners, how often does the program coordinator connect with the caregiver on an average basis?
So we have a prescribed protocol, and there are 3 contacts within the first month, and there is 1 contact for the next 2 months in a 3-month program. But we recognize that a protocol means that's just the good idea. But if we feel there's a need, we can reach out to the caregiver more often, and vice versa, that the caregiver, because this is delivered by phone and email, you don't have to schedule an appointment to go to somebody's office. That fluidity of having ongoing conversations is always available. And actually, the program works the best when there is that back and forth with
Yeah.
between care consultants and caregivers.
Sure, because the more they say, I tried this tactic, it doesn't work because, my loved one refuses or we had bad weather. Then the more robust your solutions are going to be.
Correct. And the goal of this program is to be an empowerment program too.
Hmm.
So at the end of that 3 months, that you have some new tools that you're able to use and to keep you moving forward rather than making you dependent on me. And once we stop having our interaction, you're back to where you were.
Mhm. Exactly. Now, when we talk about family caregivers, which we've been framing it as adult children, but you can also be a spouse and be a caregiver too. So this is open for spouses.
Oh, definitely. And it again, the challenge for spouses is in asking for help because many of us take those vows for better, for worse, and, sickness and in health, and think that, again, that we have to do everything by ourselves without any help. And that's impossible for anyone. When you look at someone in a hospital situation, and this is not a hospital situation, but there's a staff that's there, either two 12-hour shifts or three 8-hour shifts, and there's a group of people. Why are we expecting one person to be everything and every task worker when that's not really feasible?
Okay. Caregivers out there, did you hear what Lauri just said? One person can't do it all. And it is not a weakness to ask for help. It's just finding the right people who can give you that very practical information, very practical help that you need. If you're getting smarter, let us know. Leave us a review or rating wherever you listen to podcasts. Tell your friends and follow us on social. We're at Seniority Authority on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And don't forget, if you're listening to YouTube, hit the notification bell so you can subscribe. Or subscribe to our newsletter at seniorityauthority.org so you don't miss a thing. So BRI delivers this in multiple different states. How do you find out about local resources? If you're in upstate New York, or if you're in Kansas, or you're in Washington, D.C., how do you find out where people should call in their individual locations?
So that's a great question, Kathleen. There are typical area agencies and there are home health care agencies. Anybody could find that information. But I think our sweet spot is that empowerment piece because it's not, here's a list of home health care agencies, but here are some good questions to ask when you are trying to identify a home health care agency. Communication is so important. What does that look like when you want to have someone come into the home? And not only does the care consultant help you with this communication piece, but let's talk about your spouse. Are they going to be accepting of someone coming into the home? What is that going to look like? So the care consultant is coaching the situation in general about how can we get your spouse to accept someone coming into the home?
Mhm.
How can we maybe even have your spouse be part of the process? Maybe that spouse can identify two or three things that they would like help with so that they feel that the decisions are not being made about them without them.
That is really important to get them involved. Now, what I love about this is that the program is evidence based. Tell our listeners what you found as a result of people that went through this program, because it's pretty extraordinary.
So, the evidence that we have found is that we have reduced caregiver stress. We have increased caregivers' feeling of well being, and there have been fewer emergency room visits, and at least one hospital stay has been avoided as a result of this, and along with care receiver having reducing their stress also.
So that's pretty big. Reduction in hospital readmissions, reduction in emergency room visits, improvement in the care recipient's sense of well being, and reduction of stress with the caregiver because they have a place to call.
Yes.
So I think that's unique. The fact that it's individual is unique. If people were interested in signing up for this program, what would they do?
So if someone is interested, the best way would be to use my phone number, 216-282-3170, and, I would be more than happy to talk to you. I'm not gonna sell you anything. I went to school to be a social worker, not in marketing, and if it's not a good fit for you, if nothing else, I want you to go away with at least one resource that you can take and start to build upon the questions that you have.
So let's say that again. If you are caring for a family member and you are interested in exploring what this might look like, Glory has just offered that you can call her directly. And we'll put the phone number in the show notes for those of you who listen while you're driving. But Lori, can you repeat that phone number again?
My phone number is 216-282-3170, or you can call our caregiver support number at 216-373-1797.
So this is not just in Ohio, it's in other locations around the country. It's a 3-month program. And I know in Ohio, there is no charge for this program.
We do have funding in Ohio, which I am very grateful for that we're able to deliver this for free. We do try to set you up with any of the other funding sources that we know about because, again, we would love everybody to take advantage of this program. It sounds too good to be true, but it truly is a program that benefits the caregivers and their families.
And I think this picks up where the a lot of people who go to support groups, you've got the challenge of getting to the support group, getting respite for the person that you're caring for so you can go to the support group. And the support group isn't necessarily their peers, which is awesome, but they don't necessarily have the expertise of a social worker that lives and breathes older adult caregiving. So this is an expert resource. And in some states, is there a charge? In some states, it's complimentary. How do people figure that out?
It depends on the organization, but there are no private pays in any of the other organizations. We're the only one that does sell a subscription. The other ones is you have to fall under their geographical guidelines or the parameters of their program that's there.
So I think this is a fantastic program. It helped me. We really believe in this here at Seniority Authority. How do we help the caregiver? Because we are not eliminating dementia. We are not eliminating a lot of the comorbidities right now. So what we can do is be smarter and be more aware of how to tap into resources because it's a long road. If you are caregiving for an older adult, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So getting professional assistance, understanding where you can plug in resources to keep you energized for the journey and to keep you mentally and emotionally calm is going to make a huge difference to you.
Yes, and we have over 700 vetted educational resources. So we've taken the Google Caregiver to a better level, so to speak. And we have a variety. We have written material, we have short videos for disease education or caregiving tips. We have podcasts. I'll put this one on.
Yeah,
And we just, whatever appeals to you and whatever way that you could get this information, we're definitely going to connect you with that. And then
sure.
ask how was it? I'm not just going to read this or listen to this podcast or look at this video, but let's talk about what did you learn? How can we apply what you have read, what you have learned so that it's going to improve your everyday life?
And most people after the first 3 months, they feel like they've gotten what they needed from the program.
There are some there. We do have some because of the grants that we have. We're not restricted to 3 months. Some are 6 months. Some are longer. So as long as the caregiver feels that they are benefiting and that we are moving forward, we say that care consultants provide emotional support. But
Mhm.
it's more than just someone calling in and telling me, "Oh my goodness, I had a really rough day, and this is what's going on." And I sympathize and empathize, and they go, "Oh, I feel so much better after talking to you, Lori," but nothing has changed. And so my goal as a care consultant is to take every interaction and either move it, even if it's a baby step forward, or at least staying in the same spot instead of moving backwards. That's not to say that changes don't occur and we need to be prepared. So we talk about maybe some pre-planning for those folks that may have a loved one with dementia that they can act out. Is talking about what can you do to diffuse the situation,
Mhm.
maybe even having an escape plan. We talk about future planning in terms of the weather. It's still wintertime. We could lose power and things. And we all know that emergency management says, okay, be prepared and have, a supply of food and candles. Are we really doing that? Let's talk about what that looks like. And we're going to create that action plan instead of saying, here's a list of things, go buy them. It's like, okay, and the next time you go shopping, get a flashlight and batteries and a container to put them in. And then the next time you go shopping, let's get some water and maybe find an old sweater your loved one can have or an extra blanket and start building this up step by step.
That's awesome because you're helping them break things down into little pieces so it's not overwhelming.
Yes.
So, if people are interested, you have the phone number to call. We will be putting in our show notes where this program is available. I think it's fantastic. I love that it's evidence based, that it's individual. So, it follows you for a period of 3 months. You get the emotional support as well as the practical help. And you must feel like you are making such a difference, Lori, in people's lives every day. It must be a rewarding role for you.
I feel very lucky to have a job that I love, that I'm able to help people. There's so much information that I'm always reading and absorbing. It's interesting. I was just reading an article about caregiving like a CEO. And
Ooh.
yes, and you would think, these people are two opposite ends of the spectrum. But looking at what a CEO brings to the table, uh, they have a plan that they include other people. That CEO isn't running every machine in the company. The CEO is keeping up to date with journals and pieces. So how can we take those same skills and transfer them to a caregiver? And it really is easy. It's about letting go. It's about informing yourself. It's about creating a team around you to
Mm.
be able to deliver your product to maximize what is best for you and your loved one. And what does a CEO do? A CEO does take time to have a vacation and take care of themselves and regenerate. And that's an important piece that caregivers need to do also.
I love that image of being a CEO and having a team because I do think that is of the caregivers I know, I think that's one of the major concerns is I feel all alone. And
Hmm.
I feel like no one understands what I'm going through. And so to say I'm going to have a team, I'm going to call this friend to do this one specific thing or this family member to that is going to help you in the long run.
And in some ways, I think we've been talking about some very kind of vanilla caregiving, but there are times where adult children are thrown into the position, so to speak, for a parent who really didn't take care of them, but they
Mm.
need to step in. And that also can be very challenging because what is my obligation? Mom or dad never did anything for me. Maybe they had an undiagnosed mental health condition that's there. And as they're aging, there might be cognitive decline. Now some of their behaviors are really exasperated. So how does that adult child kind of make sure that the needs of mom or dad are taken care of, that they're doing the best that they can, but they don't have to do everything? Another great topic is family dynamics. We have the golden child. I like to refer to the golden child who, whatever they said, mom and dad agreed with them, but they're kind of thwarting all the good work that I'm doing. I live in town. I'm seeing mom and dad every day. They live in sunny California and have this lovely tan. And I set something up and they just kind of make everything fall apart. So we as care consultants look at how we can take and capitalize on that golden child to get the pieces that help everybody work together. So there are frequently times that I will suggest a family phone call so that everybody's on the same page and hears the same message.
I think that's really smart. Another podcast guest of mine has said similar kinds of things that recognize the family patterns and don't get mad at the golden child. Funnel what you need to say through the golden child,
Mhm.
because if you are the day-to-day caregiver and you're in and out, but your parent is not listening to you or doesn't think you have the knowledge, then use the structures that are there. Broken as they are, you're not going to fix your family dynamics in the midst of this caregiving situation. So just work with what you've got.
And another challenge for caregivers is talk about building a care support team. But how do you build a care support team when you have one child? I live in Ohio, and one child's in Texas, and one is in Minnesota, and one is in Virginia. What does that look like? The days of somebody making a casserole and coming down the street to mom and dad's house are long overdue. There are a couple good things that came out of COVID, and one of them is that increase in using like Uber Eats and DoorDash, so that one of my children, hey, on the third Wednesday of the month, would you be the one in charge of door dashing me food? I will give you 3 menus, and I'll
Mhm.
tell you what dad and I want, and then if you would just order it, and if you're gonna pay for it, that's awesome. Now I know on that Wednesday, I don't have to think about what am I making for dinner tonight. So there is a way that we like to be creative and incorporate what this care team looks like.
Oh,
Uh,
that's a great idea.
Not everyone wants to sit with my loved one who is maybe yelling at the TV and having issues, but as someone living in the home, there are other things that I need done. Maybe I would benefit from having someone cut the grass or trim the bushes because I'm doing all the jobs of the house that are there. Maybe if
Right.
this is someone to help do the cooking. So again, getting folks that to be part of the team and being really creative on how we can utilize the folks that are there. One of the things that I think is just so very simple but so needed is think about when your hot water tank blows, or you need a new furnace, or you need some wiring. You have a family member that lives out of state but could easily compile 2 or 3 plumbers and electricians and HVAC folks and create this list so that, oh my goodness, I need help, Susie. Susie goes, I got it, mom. Here are 3 numbers to call. They don't have to be in my location in order to
Right.
offer me the support.
I love that. And there's roles. So who is a good tech person that can
Mhm.
fix the TV again, show mom how to use a remote again? That's fantastic. This has been wonderful. I'm so thrilled that we're finally bringing the news of We Care and BRI Consulting to our listeners. But before we go, Lori, we know you're a very compassionate person and a great social worker. Let's learn a little bit more about you. So, share with our audience what your favorite guilty pleasure is.
Oh my goodness. My favorite guilty pleasure is cold tapioca pudding.
Cold tapioca pudding. Okay.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
The homemade. It can't be the stuff you
Homemade.
buy in the store. Yes,
Okay.
but it's just kind of a great comfort food that
Oh.
that just kind of makes me happy. It's so ordinary, but it's so
Oh,
special.
that's so nice. Okay. I'll have to try that. I don't know that I've ever had tapioca pudding,
Oh my
but
goodness.
it sounds like I love sweets, so I'm sure that I will love that too. And what is your favorite healthy practice?
My favorite healthy practice is my prayer life.
Oh,
My faith really um, carries me through so many different things.
that's awesome. Wonderful. What's guaranteed to make you laugh?
Oh, a really good joke or how something is portrayed. So I have 4 girls and 1 boy, and I remember it was one summer, and my son and I were talking, and it was just, one of those little banter back and forth, and he looked at me and he realized, and he goes, "I'm taller than you."
Oh.
And without batting an eye, I said, "But I outweigh you." And he couldn't say a darn thing because this was his mother. So when having witty comebacks like that, I mean, that's what makes me laugh.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. I love that. Tell us the last book that you loved.
Lessons in chemistry.
Oh, yes. Wasn't
It
that awesome?
it was so well written. I really liked that a lot. It was a book that it just it didn't follow anything. It made me keep thinking and wanting to read more. So yes.
Bonnie Gamis, I think is the author's name. I think it was a debut book and it's phenomenal and the series is also good. So Lessons in Chemistry, if you haven't read it, that's wonderful.
I did try to watch it on Netflix, and I just love a good book.
Yeah.
So I watched a few episodes after, but I couldn't finish it because it just took away from the book.
Yeah. Yeah. The book is always better. I'm built that way. When you would like to relax, what is your favorite escape?
Going to the beach and just having nothing to do. And in fact, I am planning my own birthday celebration in June, and all 5 of my children and 7 grandchildren and their spouses, we're going to Texas for a week, and it's gonna be the first time in 9 years that all my kids are together at once because they do live in I have 5 children in 4 different states. So,
Wow.
somebody's either been pregnant or sick or whatever when there's been a wedding, and so, I am just so looking forward to this.
That's gonna be fantastic. Wow, and that's what's meaningful is getting people you love together
Mhm.
and doing something just being together.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all that you've shared, Lori. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to have you on the program and an honor to talk about your work, which is so important and which I hope we can bring to many more people.
Thank you, Kathleen, and to caregivers out there, please don't be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength that you recognize that more can be done. So, yes.
Great advice. That's our show for today. If it helped you think differently, would you help me? Go to the Seniority Authority page on your podcasting app and hit the plus, heart, favorite, or subscribe button so you don't miss out. And share it with your friends. Until then, enjoy the chance to get smarter about growing older. That's our show for today. If you liked it, please tell your friends so we can reach more minds and keep the conversation going. Or follow us on social at Seniority Authority. I'm Cathleen Toomey. Until next time, enjoy your chance to get smarter about growing older.